Welcome back to Crawford-Clark Close-Up. The latest movie in the music inspired by legends following the enormous successes Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsody of the last 12 months is the film that director Danny Boyle chose to focus his attention on, rather than come to terms with producers Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson for the 25th James Bond film, due next April. Yesterday tells the story of Himesh Patel's budding musician Jack scraping by with his own songs, playing to small, unenthused crowds, with his manager and roadie being best friend from his formative school years Ellie, who we know admires Jack's music and his spirit, and has done so since he played Oasis's Wonderwall on the school stage, as witnessed in a couple of flashback scenes. The setup already seems very been there, done that, until a 12-second blackout sweeps the entire world just at the moment Jack decides to cycle home, causing a bus to hit him and hospitalise him. When he wakes, nobody in the world, bar himself and two other people he will later come into contact with in the film's momentary WTF moment, have any recollection of the enormously popular The Beatles, who formed in the early 1960s and went on to dominate the charts all over the world. As soon as you realise this fantastical and very slight narrative is from the mind of Richard, writer, producer, director Curtis, you should really know what kind of film to expect. But I guess the fact that the usually groundbreaking alternative Danny Boyle chose to climb on board to direct filled me with more optimism. This was going to be different to other stories of its kind, and Boyle was going to give us a compelling story with focus on classic songs straight out of pop music history. Whilst they have added some great Beatles tracks onto the soundtrack here, they all seem entirely inconsequential, with no narrative weaving that made a film like Rocket Man earlier this summer infinitely better. Yes, Yesterday is a different beast to the aforementioned, was never intending to emulate its success, but at the same time there's very little going for this film. To read critics saying they were crying with laughter throughout bewilders me. Yes, there was some amusing dialogue in places, most of it coming from Jack's parents, played well by Sanjeev Bhaskar and Meera Syal, and the best character in the film, Joel Fry's inept Rocky, but that's about as far as the humour stretches here. Yesterday is not a terrible film. It just could have flowed so much better instead of leaving so many gaps in the logic of the story idea. Why are only certain pop culture references forgotten by the whole planet, like Harry Potter, Coca-Cola, cigarettes, Oasis and the Beatles, and what links these seemingly unconnected things together? Why does the film have to end in sweetness and light? Surely there would be more consequence to Jack's actions at the end of the film. And why does Ed Sheeran not only have more screen time than nearly any other character in the film, but also have his hit song Shape of You as his own ringtone? It's little niggles like this that I just find hard to get past, which consequently led to me shaking my head in disbelief throughout the majority of the film. Despite what I've said up to this point, Yesterday isn't terrible. There is strong chemistry between Patel's Jack and Lily James's Ellie as the main protagonists, and their relationship is handled well on screen. In fact, this aspect of the narrative, as you would expect from rom-com mainstay Richard Curtis, is well conceived. It's everything else surrounding these two characters that pales into insignificance. We need to talk about the cameo towards the end of the film, where Jack discovers that John Lennon is still alive, but of course had not been part of the Beatles, and so led a normal life out of the spotlights. The actor playing the role has not been credited at the request of Universal Pictures, and so I'm not going to reveal who it is here. Suffice it to say that it should be blindingly obvious to anyone who's ever seen a Danny Boyle film before, if the accent doesn't give it away. It's a sweet sequence, but hardly one worth coveting. Ultimately, the Beatles' musical legacy deserves the proper, no-holds-barred biopic treatment, as opposed to this fantastical, half-assed attempt. Yesterday tries to be too many kinds of story all at once, and fails in most respects. It's worth a couple of hours of your time, but I think fans of the Beatles, let's face it, the majority of the world's population, if you're really honest with yourselves, will come away feeling shortchanged. From Crawford-Clark Close-Up. What are your thoughts on Yesterday? Despite the fact the film has received a number of mixed reviews, there still seems to be lots of positivity about the film. Have we been too harsh? Let us know your thoughts on the film in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel at the top of the page for more regular content. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, and you can email crawfordclarkcloseup@gmail.com if you feel inclined, with suggestions for future reviews on the channel. Coming up next, we have a look back at UK comedy Peep Show on its 15th anniversary, as well as the next couple of reviews in our James Bond retrospective season. Until then, thanks for watching, and that's a wrap.